Google just recovered footage that changes everything about the Nancy Guthrie case. The disabled camera actually revealed a calculated stalking mission that the kidnappers thought was erased. Google just proved that a disabled camera is never truly blind. Investigators bypassed Nancy's dead subscription and offline status by pulling raw data directly from Google's backend servers, resurrecting footage the kidnappers thought was impossible to recover. This wasn't a live stream, but more of a deep cache recovery of ghost data that remains on tech servers even when a user stops paying for storage. The suspects likely targeted the Guthrie home because the hardware looked dormant, but the FBI's digital forensic team exploited a narrow window where the device was still pinging the cloud. This recovered video captures the exact moment the perimeter was breached, offering a high-resolution view of a suspect who believed he was operating in a total surveillance blackout. For the perpetrators, this is a catastrophic oversight. They relied on a hardware status light that lied to them. By indexing this stored data, the authorities turned a piece of dead plastic into a silent witness that recorded the entire tactical entry without a single notification being sent to the family's phones. The camera was recording them the whole time they searched. The discovery of a second clip from January 11th completely dismantles the theory that this was a random heat-of-the-moment crime. This recovered footage shows the same individual, identifiable by a specific heavyset build and a unique labored gait, quietly pacing the perimeter of Nancy's home weeks before she vanished. This was a reconnaissance mission. He wasn't just passing through. The video even clearly shows him checking the line-of-sight angles and testing the blind spots of the very cameras Google just brought back to life. This earlier date is a massive breakthrough because it allows the FBI to cross-reference cell tower pings and Wi-Fi handshakes from a specific, narrow window of time when the area was quiet. Identifying this dry run proves the abduction was a coordinated extraction that required multiple site visits to map out Nancy's routine and the house's vulnerabilities. This predator didn't stumble upon an open door. He spent weeks studying the locks and the timing of the family's visits to ensure he could move in and out without a single neighbor noticing a thing. He was effectively a student of her life. This means the intruder wasn't a random stranger. He was someone studying her routine closely. The most damning piece of evidence didn't come from a camera, but from inside Nancy Guthrie herself. Investigators pulled the forensic log from her pacemaker, and the data shows a violent, sustained spike in heart rate at exactly 2 a.m. When you overlay this medical data with the timestamp on the recovered Google footage, the timeline becomes chillingly precise. Her heart rate didn't jump because she was walking. It surged while she was supposedly stationary in her bedroom. This proves the confrontation didn't happen on the porch or in the yard. It happened deep inside the one place she was supposed to be safe. This final report from her own chest cavity confirms that Nancy Guthrie was alive and conscious when the intruder breached her room, contradicting any theories about a medical emergency or a quiet slipaway. The pacing of the heart rate indicates a massive surge of adrenaline, the kind only triggered by a sudden, terrifying physical struggle. It's hard-hitting data that locks the suspect in that room at that specific second, turning her medical history into a digital witness. Her heart rate tells a story that her voice never could. The droplets found on the front porch are the most misunderstood evidence in this entire case, but forensic science tells a very specific story about what happened to Nancy. Online critics have tried to dismiss the stains as simple bruising or skin fragility common in 84-year-olds, but the physical structure of the blood proves that theory is dead wrong. Analysts identify these drops as aerated, meaning they contain tiny oxygen bubbles that create a lighter, almost frothy appearance with hollow centers. This only happens when blood is expelled from the nose or mouth after being mixed with air from the lungs. A simple surface scratch or a skin tear on the arm would produce dark, defined, non-aerated drops that pool and separate over time. The presence of aerated blood on those steps confirms Nancy suffered a significant internal injury or a blunt force trauma to the face during the struggle inside. It's a scientific impossibility for this to be a minor accidental scrape. This evidence points directly to a physical altercation that was violent enough to cause respiratory-linked bleeding before she was even moved to the car. That frothy pattern on the porch points to a possibly violent struggle. The kidnappers made a massive tactical error by including a Bitcoin address in their ransom note, thinking the blockchain would offer them total anonymity. While they might believe their digital trail is cold, the FBI is currently using a triangulation strategy that turns that wallet into a beacon. Every single transaction on the blockchain is public and permanent. Investigators are just waiting for the moment those funds move toward a KYC or Know Your Customer exchange. These exchanges are legally required to verify real-world identities, linking bank accounts and government IDs to digital wallets. The suspects can bounce the coins through 1,000 mixer addresses, but the moment they try to convert the crypto into usable cash to actually spend it, they hit a digital wall. Federal authorities have already flagged the ransom address across every major global exchange, effectively setting a trap that will snap shut the second someone tries to cash out. They think they have a fortune, but in reality, they're just holding a digital signature that leads investigators straight to their front door. The moment they try to spend it, the trap snaps shut. The FBI didn't just look for suspects, they cast a digital net over the entire neighborhood using Wi-Fi and cellular triangulation. This is how a local delivery driver ended up in a federal interrogation room. By pulling handshake data from every device that pinged a local router or cell tower during the 40-minute abduction window, investigators flagged anyone whose movement patterns were irregular. The driver had made multiple stops near Nancy's address, which triggered a high-priority alert in the data sweep. While he was eventually cleared and released, his detention shows how aggressively the FBI is hunting for an electronic footprint. They aren't just looking for phone calls, they're looking for the silent background signals that every modern smartphone emits as it searches for a signal. This sweep led to the brief detention of several residents who were out at odd hours, forcing them to provide alibis for every minute of that morning. It proves that even if a suspect didn't have a footprint in the dirt, their phone likely left a permanent mark on the network. Every phone in that neighborhood was a witness that night. The most frustrating aspect of the Guthrie investigation is the forensic opportunity that slipped through the cracks during the first few hours of chaos. Forensic experts used a technique called electrostatic lifting to pull invisible dust prints off hard surfaces like porches and entryways, but it only works if the scene is frozen immediately. Because the exterior of Nancy's home wasn't treated as a high-security zone right away, the window to recover a perfect footwear impression from that trail shoe we talked about likely slammed shut. Once investigators allowed for foot traffic, whether from neighbors, first responders, or news crews to cross those steps, the original dust patterns were obliterated. A trail shoe leaves a specific lug pattern that can be cross-referenced with the Google footage frame by frame, potentially identifying the exact make and model of the suspect's gear. By failing to grid the exterior and lift those prints before the environment was contaminated, the team lost a physical link that could have tied a specific person to the blood on the porch. It's a classic example of how the first 60 minutes of an investigation can determine whether a case is solved or goes cold. A few misplaced footsteps might have erased the killer's signature. As the case drags on, the staged theories and reality TV conspiracies have taken a life of their own, fueled by a deep-seated institutional distrust. This is a classic case of proportionality bias. People struggle to accept that a major, high-profile disappearance could be caused by something as simple as a random, two-man home invasion. To bridge that gap, the mind invents elaborate narratives involving government cover-ups or family involvement to make the cause seem as big as the effect. But when you look at the verified tech data, those theories fall apart under their own weight. Google's server recovery and the forensic pacemaker logs are independent data points that cannot be faked or staged for a camera crew. The pacemaker confirms Nancy's heart rate spiked violently inside her bedroom at 2 a.m., exactly when the Google footage shows an intruder breaching the perimeter. Those two separate systems, owned by two different corporations, tell a consistent and chilling story of a real-world abduction. No matter how much people want to find a hidden conspiracy, the digital evidence confirms that Nancy was targeted by a predator who was very real and very dangerous. The data doesn't lie, even when the internet might want it to. With the digital net closing in, do the suspects realize their biggest witness is a server they can never erase? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.